I haven't been able to film one of these in a while because I have been feeling very closeted in my home. It's like when I became a mother, my partner began to compare me to his mother, and he had a really good fucking mom. Like, she was a special education teacher. She had a lot of therapy, art therapy experience, and like in my aptitudes, that was very much what I could have done. But the thing was that I started picturing just now Karen taking care of these 3 boys with special needs because her mother had 3 neurodivergent daughters. And Ellen, the oldest, she lived with her mother and then was institutionalized. So at a very young age, Karen was separated from her sister, and she died in a facility in a whole other state than where they lived. And it was like out of sight, out of mind. You talk about your special needs sister and you start wondering, like, am I a bad person because I didn't really interact with her that much? Like, did I have problems with being able to talk? I'm thinking about my mother. She was a follower of psychics and was like giving her money away to these organizations that were like doing tarot readings for people. And Oprah had this show with Sabrina, I'm not sure, but she was a psychic, and she would tell people like what she saw in the future. And the thing was, when she was trying to be like as vague and generalized as possible to be able to get as much viewership as possible. So like the thing about TV psychics back then in the 90s was that they were being sold this idea that there's intuitive, there's forethought, and the ancient witches, the ancestors of a lot of white colonial families, were pagans that were driven from their homes by Roman Catholics. And this is like between 14,000 to 17,000. And then when the monarchs were developing their empire, they had gold reserves, and they used this gold as a currency between Spain and Britain. The colonies, they were using cheap labor by going across the ocean and planting different seeds for tobacco, cotton, different things like textiles, and then used American indentured servants to make their services and goods, their expensive stuff that was in like Britain royalty. So I think there's like a genetic link between the changes in DNA. There's imprints of strife and trauma when there is like great moments of stress, and since so many of us have anxiety, I wonder if we have what I first learned about in it was like a show called Transparent, and they were a Jewish family, and the main character was a trans woman that was kind of coming out to her family, and she found out that there were queer members of her family that they thought a brother was a sister, and like a sister, but she was trans in France or Germany, and had like these very queer spaces. There is a story that my dad told me that like I just keep thinking about. My dad, he told us a funny story about how they were playing tag, and one of the boys when they caught him in the barn, he kissed my dad. And like ever since then, I thought like my dad would have been so much happier if he got to live as a gay man. That's why like he didn't have any girlfriends, and like he was always hanging out with his male friends, and like he was kind of a bachelor. Like people called him a barfly. Like he has a reputation around town that he knows every bar, and like when one closes, he goes to the next one. And like I didn't really see much of this when I was growing up, because he like after he was pulled over in his truck or his motorcycle, he had to go to jail, and he told me where like his bag of money was, and like I was 15. I drove myself to the police station to pay my dad's bail, and all they asked was like, wait, how old are you? And I thought I got away with it because I said I was 15, and they thought like I had my learner's permit. But like I think now they probably understood like my dad is a single parent, and he doesn't have anybody else to come and bail him out. Like he couldn't call my grandma because she would have been really critical of him, and just like blamed all the stuff and been real mean. And like he legitimately is scared of my grandma, and like that makes me feel a different kind of way when I think about my family, because it's like I have several different perspectives of what neurodivergencies have done to the poor class in America. And like since I was hyperlexic as a child, like I have the encyclopedia, the dictionaries that my grandmother had, and that was like my only outlet into the world, was learning all these different words, and then like having the picture of the word in my mind. And as soon as I learned that word, like an action or a picture, I keep thinking of like a conch, C-O-N-C-H, and when we had to read, or people were talking about I see the pictures. It's like these boys that are on the island, and they have to hold the conch shell to be able to talk. And like in a book, you don't know what these things look like until you start searching everything. So like when I got the internet, and like if I'm already ADHD and I already have autism, when I got the internet and I was learning everything I could about it, I really wanted to know all my questions, like the whys, because all the adults up to this point, every time I would ask, why why is the sky blue? Why are trees green? Like all of these really profound questions that a lot of kids have. Like in child development, I learned like the reason why I was just trying to absorb all this knowledge. I was in a knowledge desert. All the wisdom that was supposed to be passed down from like generations to generations. My grandmother wanted a little girl, and she believed she adopted me from my mother and had the court deem her unfit. And my mother lost a lot of her children. I say a lot because she had Casey first with their first dad and Adam, and then Damon was born from a truck driver that he later on died. And when my mom, she couldn't prove paternity. So like with my dad, I felt like it was kind of a second chance. She was trying to get a daughter. All she wanted was a daughter because she wanted that same mother-daughter relationship that she had with her mother. And she raised her mother until she was 19. And her mother raised her until she was 19, and then she was supposed to get married and start a family of her own, and she did all of that, but she still wasn't, people weren't proud of her. Like all the other things that she did, drinking, smoking, riding motorcycles. Like she was born in 1962 maybe. So she had her teenage years in the 70s and 80s. And I think like a lot of the moments that traumatized her were etched in her DNA. And something I learned about genetics, like I looked into why there was homosexuality, heterosexuality. Are there markers on the DNA? Are there characteristics in the fetus? Or like, is it the mother? And something that I found was that female bodies, when they are holding a male fetus, they will bombard them with like white blood cell equivalent. I don't think it's white blood cells, but they attack the immune system of males. I think in this way they are creating a natural balance of sexually viable males in humans and humans that do not have that are heterosexual, so same sexual, and sex, like in early science, there wasn't chromosomes, it was genitalia, and there was male, female, and other, and the intersex of humans that were revered in many parts of society ended up being a normal occurrence. And part of like being a mother, something that I wanted to like really hone in on was that there is a 1 in 1,000 chance of having intersex child, and there's no male and female, and I wasn't going to care. Like if she was a boy and like we wanted to raise him as the exact same kid, really. And I think about Luna, and that I want her to know that she is as big as the moon. She is beautiful, and I want her to know that she's intelligent and she can speak to us about anything. And she's only 2 right now, and I'm realizing, like, the matriarchal society that I was raised in, I say it was a whole society, because there is a girl code where ooh, there's a piece of dirt on the road. There's a girl code where we start warning each other about men very early, and as like a survival technique, we develop these manipulative, narcissistic traits in order to survive. And like, something that I told myself was that, like, I was too ugly to be raped. I was too ugly to be kidnapped. I was too ugly to be harassed. Like, anything feminine about me, I would reject, because there was like no way I could keep up with all of these rules that my grandmother and my mother and my step-grandmother Harriet was like the epitome of trying to be not that girl and like looking beautiful. And my mom would always comment on how beautiful she thought Harriet was. And that was because my grandma, like, I didn't get to be around Harriet that much because my grandma really hated her. And like, I didn't want to hate anybody. Like, I remember in high school where like I had kept a grudge and I hated people, and like I would give side glances and be a mean girl all through elementary school, when I was like the queen bee, because I was following all the rules that my grandma had taught me in church. And what happened is that like I ended up hurting the feelings of my friends and making jokes and like picking people out that I knew were different, because I was different, so I could spot them. Well, like, the problem with that was like it made me feel like a piece of shit. I didn't feel anything positive with my bullying, but I still honed those skills. And that's like me when I was like 9-10 years old, and that became like one of my shameful past. Like I started apologizing to people that I had picked on or bullied whenever I felt like I was being made fun of by things I couldn't control, like having clothes from Walmart, or like not having my hair brushed, or like stinking. My dad didn't have anything, any skills, because of how my grandmother and my grandfather raised their 3 boys. And like, I don't know why I had such a need to be better than my mother. And I don't know why, like, I needed to have a partner and have all this other stuff, because it was like I'm lost.